High above the clouds, Kraj hovered silently, his eyes scanning the sprawling mansion below. The sun had already climbed high, casting long shadows across the garden paths. He allowed himself a small smile. Setting teleportation points across the stone hammer and rural kingdoms had been a wise decision. Traveling between cities now took mere moments. He descended gently, landing on the second-floor balcony where a familiar figure stood. A young girl leaned against the railing, lost in thought, her red dragon tail swaying rhythmically behind her. She didn't turn at the sound of his footsteps. She didn't need to. She had known the moment he arrived. Without a word, Kraj stepped beside her and placed his large hand gently atop her head. His touch was warm and steady. "Have you been well?" he asked softly. I'll be heading to the academy soon," Kana replied, leaning into his hand. "And tomorrow, Celia and I are going out to start leveling again. Things are about to get busy." A peaceful silence settled over them as they gazed out at the landscape. Then, Kana broke it with a quiet voice, laced with guilt. "I'm sorry." Kraj turned his head. "Sorry? For what?" "For forcing you into marriage," she said, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Back then, I didn't know what I was doing. I acted on impulse. I thought it was the right thing to do. But marriage is supposed to be between people who love each other. I didn't even ask what you wanted." Her voice dropped. "If you want out, I'll understand." Kraj chuckled quietly, shaking her head with his hand, making her wobble and look up at him with a pout. "You might have rushed it," he said, "but I don't mind. I told you before, if someday you choose me, I'll be waiting. I'm in it. You're always welcome, Kana. We demons, we don't take marriage lightly. From the moment that bond was made, my heart was already yours." He pulled her into a gentle embrace. "You still have time to grow, to figure out what you want. But no matter what, I'll be here. And with the magic I cast on you, I'll always be able to protect you, no matter the danger." Kana closed her eyes, letting his warmth seep into her. That unfamiliar sensation inside her chest. Was it peace? Love? Whatever it was, it made her smile. She wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "Then I guess my handsome husband is stuck with me." "I guess so," Kraj replied, his lips curving upward. He reached into his coat and pulled out a metal case, handing it to her. "I made this for you. It'll keep you safe." Curious, Kana opened the box and gasped. Inside lay a necklace that shimmered like crystal, with a miniature sword hanging from its center. Her eyes sparkled. "It's beautiful. Are you sure I can have it?" Kraj nodded. "I forged this sword for you. It's crafted from a rare material called heavenly, or it's special, enchanted with 4 spells. A healing spell that gradually restores your HP, a defensive ward that reduces damage from physical attacks, a teleportation spell to summon the sword to your hand, and a transformation spell activated with a word change. But it will only ever belong to one person. To bind it, drip a little of your blood onto it." Without hesitation, Kana pricked her finger and let a single drop fall onto the necklace. The moment the blood touched it, the necklace rose into the air, glowing softly as it transformed. The blade expanded, adjusting to the perfect size for her small hands. "It will grow with you," Kraj explained, watching her reaction. "As you get taller and stronger, so will your sword." Kana's joy was radiant. She gripped the hilt, admiring the intricate patterns of roses and thorns etched into the blade. The glassy weapon shimmered with silver light, elegant yet fierce. "It's amazing," she said, her voice breathless. "I love it." Pulling Kraj's arm, she made him kneel beside her. She kissed his cheek sweetly and whispered, "Thank you." His heart warmed at her smile. He placed his hand on her head again, watching her as she admired the sword, her excitement pure and unfiltered. And then, ahem, a voice rang out behind them. Well, seems I'm interrupting something, Mr. Lilicon." Kraj's brow twitched at the word Lilicon, a frown forming instantly. But before he could utter a word in protest, a small figure stepped in front of him with fierce determination. "Celie, don't be mean to my handsome husband," Kana declared, puffing out her cheeks. "It's my fault he's married to me, so stop picking on him." Her voice, although high-pitched and youthful, was brimming with sincerity. To Kana, Krage wasn't just someone bound to her by accident. He was kind, attentive, and had never once complained about their unusual situation. He even went as far as forging a custom weapon for her protection. So regardless of who was teasing him, even if it was Seely, Kana wasn't going to let it slide. Seely blinked, caught off guard by Kana's protective tone. Then, with a sigh, she bowed her head. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be cruel. My words were thoughtless. She understood now. Kana had always been protective of those she cared for, and in this case, Krage was no exception. The girl was growing quickly, emotionally as well as in strength. And looking at Krage, Seely could tell he was taking his role seriously. Despite the odd circumstances, he never treated Kana with indifference. It made her wonder, would I ever find someone who looks at me like that? MMM. Now let's go eat lunch. Handsome husband, come eat with me. Kana chirped, grabbing Krage's hand with one of hers while letting her sword swing playfully in the other. Kana, Krage said in a gentle but firm voice, put your sword away before you hurt yourself. All right, change, Kana said brightly. The sword shimmered in response and began shrinking into its necklace form. Krage took it from her and clasped it gently around her neck. Seely, watching from the side, couldn't help but smile. The two looked strangely adorable together, like a young couple who had already weathered much more than their years would suggest. As they sat down to eat, Krage kept adding more food to Kana's plate, which she devoured with unrestrained joy. Seely eventually spoke up. So, how long do you plan to stick around? Just until lunch is over, Krage replied. I don't want to interfere with her routine, and staying too long will make her rely on me too much. That won't help her grow. But I do have one request of you. Seely tilted her head. A favor? What kind? If war breaks out in the rural kingdom, take Kana and head for the Stonehammer Kingdom. Bring her straight to the capital and stay at my estate. I don't want her anywhere near a battlefield. War doesn't spare the young or the innocent. As he spoke, he reached for a napkin and wiped a bit of sauce from Kana's cheek. His actions were so natural, Seely had to admit. If anyone could be called a doting husband, it was him. She nodded slowly. I'll try, but I can't promise. One of our sisters, Tilia, is stationed at the castle. She's trying to support the rural kingdom's defenses. If things escalate, she'll be heading to the front lines. And if Kana finds out, she'll follow, Krage finished grimly. Then I'll send you a sleeping potion tomorrow. It should be strong enough to keep her out. You know I'm sitting right here, right? Kana interrupted with a sigh. She placed her chopsticks down and looked directly at him. I'm not stupid. I understand the risks. But if war comes and Tilia is out there fighting, I won't leave her behind. She stood, removing the necklace and holding it in her palm. Change, she commanded. The sword reformed in her hand, growing to full size with a soft hum of magic. Without another word, she walked over to the nearby window, opened it, and raised the blade. She swung it lightly. Boom! A sudden explosion of force split the edge of the window frame and carved deep into the floor, creating a massive gash that extended several meters outward. The earth below was gouged cleanly, the scar wide and deep, a testament to the sheer power behind that casual slash. Krage and Seely both stared in stunned silence. Kana turned back to them, her eyes calm and confident. I'm stronger than I look. Neither could deny it. They had just witnessed what should have been impossible for someone her age. If that had been a light swing, what would happen if she truly unleashed her strength? Krage exhaled slowly. It seems I may have been worrying too much. Still, Kana, promise me, if you ever feel like your life is truly in danger, run. No matter what. Kana smiled gently, lowering her sword. I promise. I won't die, but I'll protect the people I care about. That's what being strong means.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
A few days passed since the day Krage showed up, and Kana proved how strong she was. Seely had been in a daze since then, as Kana's simple sword swing continued to appear in her mind. Seely knew Kana was a dragon, but to find out she was so strong after evolving made Seely feel very inferior. She looked at her own stats, ranging from 40 to 70, with her agility being her highest stat. I need to get stronger, If I am to fight alongside Kana from now on, I need to become stronger so that I will not end up a burden instead. Seely looked up at the blue sky that she could barely see through the trees' canopies, feeling very depressed. A monster came from her side, and Seely quickly drew her bow and let her arrow fly. XP plus 100. Too slow. These monsters are too low level. I need to fight stronger monsters. Seely looked off deeper into the forest before making up her mind. She took a quick gaze towards the forest exit before marching deeper into the forest as quickly as she could. That day when Kana swung her sword, Seely stared at the sword scar created, unable to look away. It took Kana pinching her thigh for her to come back to her senses. Every day since then, she had been in this forest trying to level up. Kana was also someplace in the forest running around leveling as well. As evening came, Seely had already traveled deep into the forest. The monsters she was now encountering were becoming increasingly stronger. Most were now all first evolution monsters. She was currently in the middle of a fight with a pack of razor wolves. These wolves only hunted in packs of 6 and had long claws that they could extend out as they pounced on their prey, ripping them to shreds. Besides their dangerous claws, they were also extremely fast, and Seely was starting to have a hard time. "You guys are really persistent," Seely yelled out as she jumped over a large tree root. She was happy her agility was so high, or else she would not be able to keep the small lead she had on these razor wolves. The only problem that she worried about was not knowing how much longer she could keep running. She turned and ran backwards as she drew her bow back and fired an arrow at one of the razor wolves. Oh! The razor wolf that was in Seely's line of sight howled as the arrow nicked the side of its face. Feeling its flesh being sliced open caused a razor wolf to become enraged as it charged towards Seely at a faster speed than the other razor wolves. *T, did it go berserk? Seely frowned and quickly turned around to continue running. Seely realized she was in dire straits at this time. All her powerful attacks took time to charge, and she had no such time when the enemy was this fast. If this keeps up, in another part of the forest, Kana pulled her sword out of a needle monkey. Many more needle monkey corpses laid on the ground around her as well. Her fiery red hair fluttered in the gentle breeze, and her red eyes that were like rubies stared off into the distance. Seely, Kana felt as if something was wrong. She sniffed the air and charged forward deeper into the forest. "Lyserth, can you search the surroundings and see if you can find Seely?" "No problem. But the further you go past this point, the more powerful the monsters are. So you'll need to be careful as well." Lyserth was feeling many powerful first and second evolution monsters in Kana's vicinity. "I will try to direct you around them as much as I can." "Thanks," Kana said as she charged forward. Kana had promised to use very little of her strength when leveling in order to not change the landscape too much. Her current power was beyond anything the area could take, so she had been using a fraction of her power when fighting and only raising it slightly when an enemy was stronger. This kind of training was good for Kana because her control over her strength was getting better and better. This would be especially helpful when in the academy, so she can stay low-key and not end up on anyone's radar. Kana did not want to stand out if she could help it when it came to her strength. Back on Seely's side, she was starting to grow tired. The razor wolf that had gone berserk was closing in by the second. "Damn it!" Seely cried out. She had tears in her eyes. She only wanted to grow stronger. She wanted to be on the same equal footing as Kana. She couldn't call herself Kana's older sister if she was weaker. Why is life so unfair? Seely's foot got caught on a root that was sticking up out of the ground, sending her flying forward. She tumbled some distance before coming to a stop. She struggled to her feet to continue running, but now it was too late. The razor wolves were already upon her. Seely frowned. Although she did not get hurt when she fell except for some scrapes, the delay it caused was enough for the wolves to catch up to her. She was already surrounded, and the berserk razor wolf was already about to pounce. Seely put her bow away and took out her dagger and crouched down slightly. "Since I can't run, then I will make sure to take as many of you with me as I can." Blood dripped onto the ground, creating a pool at Seely's feet. Deep gashes ran down her arm, her legs, and even across her stomach. Seely laid on the ground against a tree stump, holding her stomach. In front of her were 4 dead razor wolves and 2 more that were staring at her with intense killing intent. Both these razor wolves were in a berserk state, but still acted wary of Seely after she had killed 4 of their comrades. Seely's eyes were half closed. The world around her was blurry. She cursed herself for being so impulsive and not thinking of the consequences. She had indeed screwed up badly, and it seemed her mistake was about to cost her life. Huh. Seely let out a self-deprecating laugh. Who am I to think I can stand next to Kana and fight on equal terms with her? I can't even defend myself. Seely looked at the 2 razor wolves still staying at a distance from her and smiled. She reached behind her and grabbed her bow. Using the last ounce of MP she had, she formed an arrow and notched the string before pulling back as hard as she could on the bow. She could feel all her strength draining from her as she did. Her head swayed as she tried to take aim. When she finally steadied herself long enough, she let go. The arrow flew through the air straight at one of the razor wolves. But unfortunately, the arrow began to break up before reaching the razor wolf, turning into small balls of light as it dissipated into the surroundings. Huh, such is life. And here I at least wanted to go down, knowing I took 5 of you fuckers with me. Earlier, she had fought with everything she had. But sadly, she could not come out unscathed, and now she was at death's door. She smiled bitterly and closed her eyes. That last attack was all she had left in her. The razor wolves sensed the prey was on its last legs and decided to charge forward. Seely could feel the tremors in the ground as the razor wolves pounced towards her. The razor wolf in the front extended its long, sharp claws and raised its large paw in the air, getting ready to strike. The razor wolf struck out at Seely, slamming its paw down as hard as it could to make sure it finished off its prey. Bam! How dare you hurt my sister? A loud yell was heard, and the razor wolf that was about to land the final blow felt a sharp pain in its head before the world began to spin. Its large body dropped to the ground as blood spurted from its neck. The razor wolf's head spun in a 360, and just before it died, it saw the image of its headless body. The other razor wolf was frozen stiff. It could not comprehend what had just happened. Why did its last comrade suddenly lose its head? But before it could figure things out, it too suddenly felt a sharp pain in its neck and saw the world spinning. What it saw was a small figure standing there with burning eyes, her fiery red hair fluttering in the breeze. Seely. Kana saw the state Seely was in and began to tear up. She hurried over to her, but was not sure what she should do. Lyserth, is there any way to save her? Lyserth knew things were grim. If Seely did not get any help soon, she was sure to die. Kana, take Seely's shirt off, rip it into a long strip, and wrap it tightly around her stomach. It may be embarrassing for her, but she will need to deal with it. Once you have done that, pick her up and ran as fast as you can back to the mansion. Kana was shaking. She was scared that Seely would die any second. She took Seely's shirt off and tore it into a long strip before wrapping it tightly, as she was told around Seely's stomach. Seely let out a cry of pain and woke up for only a split second before passing out. Kana lifted Seely up and ran as fast as she could. Any monsters that got in her way were met with a swift end by the edge of her sword. Luckily, due to her fast speed, she was able to blow by most monsters, and in no time at all, she was already out of the forest running towards the city. Kana quickly arrived at the mansion, burst through the front doors, and yelled out, "Jansel!" Jansel came running into the main hall and gasped at the sight of the blood on the floor. "Miss Kana, what happened?" "Jansel, please save her. She was attacked while farming alone in the forest." Kana's tears rolled down her face. She was trembling from head to toe. She had not known Seely for long, but Seely was now her important family member. She did not want her to die. "Calm down, Miss Kana. I will have Felona come and heal her. She is an expert in healing magic." Jansel wasted no time and hurried off. She instructed some maids to help Kana bring Seely to a bed and try to stop the bleeding. Kana and the other maids brought Seely to a bed, stripped her remaining clothes off, and went to work cleaning her wounds and doing their best to stop the bleeding. Right now, time was of the essence. Seely only had a breath of life left inside her. If Kana did not make it to her in time, she would have died in the woods. But because Kana was quick, she still had a chance to live. Kana sat by the bed holding Seely's hand while Felona went to work healing her injuries. A pile of empty MP potions was sitting at her side, and sweat dripped from her forehead as she worked. Hours after hours passed, and finally, Felona was able to wipe her brow. Miss Kana, Miss Seely is stabilized. Now, all we could do is wait for her to wake up. Thank you, Felona. Please go rest. Kana's eyes did not even leave Seely's face. Her eyes, at this point, were puffy from crying so much. Miss Kana, please go rest. Dinner is already served and is waiting for you downstairs. The staff will give Miss Seely a bath and change her clothes so she will be more comfortable. When she wakes, we will notify you. Okay. Kana took one more long glance at Seely before following a maid out of the room. She never thought a day would come when someone close to her would be hurt this bad. Kana clenched her fist. If only I were faster. If only I got there a few minutes earlier. The rural kingdoms border with Illyrien. Sir, the enemy has built a base camp and are slowly erecting a fort. A beastkin reported. Let them build. If we try to step over the line now, it would mean an all-out attack from all sides. They're just trying to provoke us at this time to justify their actions to the Empire. The Euthia theocracy is just looking for the right reason to attack. They know the Empire does not like them and has the power to crush them, so they are wary, said a man standing by a table with a map lying on top of it. There were many small figurines placed on the map, all situated at the border of the rural kingdom. But if we let them build up their defenses, we will be at a disadvantage. The beastkin who made the report was starting to become worried. That is why we will do the same. It has been a long time since we have any fort towns at our borders. Since they wish to build a fort, so shall we. One thing you have to understand. When a Euthia theocracy was just formed, they were still hungry for more land. At the time, the east side of the theocracy used to be a small kingdom that bordered the empire called Horlium. The problem was that if the theocracy actually attacked another kingdom, the empire had threatened to step in. So in order to get Horlium to initiate the attack, they had begun building forts along the border. Instead of building forts of their own, they made the choice to attack instead. It ended with almost 70% of their forces being killed and the annexation of their entire kingdom. Because the Horlium kingdom attacked first, the empire did not step in to stop the theocracy. This time is the same. The empire does not condone the actions of the theocracy by threatening the smaller kingdoms into helping them attack our rural kingdom. But because of the combined strengths of the three countries, the empire cannot step in directly and can only take a political approach at this time. But they will also not side with us. They also use our people as slaves. They know if they wish to help us, they would need to abolish slavery in their lands. So they have no choice but to stay back and watch the show. But the thing which I find funny is that if the theocracy is somehow able to win this war, then the empire would end up having to submit to them. No matter how you look at it, the empire will be stuck with no way out and all because they do not want to give up their free labors. They will rather bow down to the damn church. Soldier, remember religion can be a scary thing. It is fine to believe in the goddess or whatever ever, but never let it control your life. Those goddesses could give a sh*t less about us. Otherwise, they would be down here to stop this all from happening. The man by the map explained. High above the skies, Euthia was watching the happenings below and frowned. Why the hell should I stick my neck out for you punks? Look how old and ugly you are. Why would I even attempt to save you, but when you look like something I stepped in 10,000 years ago? Euthia, shut up. Say took the grape in her hand and threw it at Euthia. Ouch. God damn it. Say, do you have something against my eyes? Why the hell am I still friends with you? Since when were we friends? Say asked, her expression completely blank as she tilted her head to the side as if lost in thought, trying to figure out when their friendship ever started. Euthia was holding her eyes pouting. Tears were beginning to well up in her good eye. Say, Stop being mean to Euthia. A voice came from behind them. I'm just teasing her, Say said with a shrug before going back to watching the screen. How is making me go blind for the 8th time this week considered teasing? Euthia yelled out. She had been hit in the eyes by grapes. So many times she was starting to form a fear of grapes. All right, calm down, Euthia. Are you still watching that child? A woman with cat ears and 4 tails lifted Euthia's feet and sat down before putting Euthia's feet on her lap. Her friend almost died, just recently though. The poor girl put up a strong fight against many foes stronger than herself. Luckily, it seems she will pull through. Come to think of it, she seems to be from your race. A cat Sith, but only has 1 tail. Euthia explained as she rubbed her sore eye. I guess I will watch this friend of hers, if she is worthy. I may give her a blessing down the Stone Hammer Kingdom. Young miss, please do not act rash. If you go back there, you might end up stuck in bed again. You haven't fully healed from your injuries yet, either. A young dwarven girl around 16 years of age rushed forward, trying to push the beautiful wolf girl back so she will stay in bed. Moo, even you were saying this? Was it not me who saved you from the slums? Right now, you would already be pregnant twice over, if not for me. Your parents would have sold you off to some strange old man for a little bit of money. The beautiful wolf girl said as she struggled to get up. But young miss, he said he was already married. The young dwarven girl, named Moo, was trying her best to persuade her young miss so she would not end up in the same state as before. If not for healing magic, she would have had to stay in bed for months. The man who her young miss was chasing was not easy at all. He had used a heavy hand to throw her young miss out. Almost all the bones in her body were shattered due to it. I don't care. I'm still going. I, the #1 beauty in Stonehammer, refuse to believe that I cannot steal a married man away from his wife. Only Krage is worthy of me. He is the most handsome man in all the kingdoms. No one compares to him. This beautiful wolf girl was Felina, the girl who tried to make Krage hers only to be ruthlessly tossed out the front door and into a wall. That day her people had to peel her body off the wall and bring her back to her home to be healed. She had spent all this time in bed dealing with her injuries. Now she was almost fully healed and wanted to attempt to once again try to seduce Krage. Young miss, I do not think that he will. Moo frowned. She did not like the idea of her young miss trying to steal someone else's man. Enough. I will not change my mind on this. Krage will be mine one way or another. I will send someone out to investigate who Krage's wife is. Once I find out, we will see what happens from there. I am sure I can get her to leave him, so I can have him. I mean, who in this world has enough beauty to surpass me? Plus, I'm also at a high level. If she won't listen, I could just kill her. Felina said these words casually as if it didn't matter, but Moo felt different. She felt someone like Krage would more than likely not pick a weak wife. She had a bad feeling that in the near future, her young miss will end up regretting ever trying to steal another woman's man. Far away in the next kingdom over, Kana was stripping off her clothes to take a hot bath when she suddenly let out a loud sneeze. Am I catching a cold? Kana stood there for a few seconds, trying to feel if she was sick or not, but she felt fine. Miss Kana, please get in the bathtub. It is unladylike to stand there like that. One of the maids at the side came over and rushed Kana into the tub. Plus, what if Lord Krage shows up again and sees you like that? Its fine handsome husband has already seen it. Although Kana said that, she still blushed and rushed into the bathtub and sunk down into it up to her neck. The maid giggled and walked over and began washing Kana's hair. Miss Kana, your hair is very beautiful. The maid slowly ran her fingers through Kana's hair as she gently massaged some soap into it to wash out any dirt. Thank you, I like it too. Kana closed her eyes and enjoyed the pampering. But after a few seconds, Kana asked, Has Seely woken up yet? The maid let out a sigh. This was the 100th time today she had been asked this question. Not yet, Miss Kana. Jansel said they will inform you first thing when she does. Okay. Kana's bottom lip pouted slightly. She knew she was being annoying asking this question over and over, but she was really worried. It had already been over a day, yet Seely still had not woken up. After another few minutes, Kana thought of another thing she was worried about. How are things with the war with humans? Last news we received from the castle is that the humans have amassed on our border and are building a grand fort. They seem to be building one that will rise high above the wall, so they can easily launch attacks. In response, the general has also gotten his men to do the same. Right now, no one has attacked, but it is only a matter of time. The maid replied. Just as she finished saying this, another maid rushed into the room, panting. Miss Kana, there is urgent news from the castle. The war has started, and the rural kingdom has already suffered severe losses. The Church of Euthia sent out many high priests and launched one of their grand magics, destroying the border wall and wiping out over 100,000 of our troops. Kana frowned and remembered the attack that just one priest was able to do. If they sent out several, then the attack must have been on a much larger scale. Kana turned and looked at the maid who came in and asked, "Has Tilia been sent out yet?" Kana already knew that Tilia might be sent out due to Lyserth explaining things to her about wars. Tilia was a healer plus someone who knew much about the other side. She was an invaluable asset to them that could be used. She may be well protected, but that did not mean she was not in any danger. "I have not heard anything of yet," the maid replied. "Let me know once you find anything out. If Tilia is to go to the front lines, I will go with her." Boom. "Sir, we can't handle any more of this. We lost too many when the theocracy used one of their grand magics." A soldier came running up, his forehead full of sweat. "There is not much else I can do. Do you think I like the fact that our people are dying one after the other? But if we do not at least try to stop them here, we will end up letting all those innocent lives being captured as slaves. We have no choice but to fight." The general held the entire country on his shoulders. He had split off what was left of his men in order to evacuate as many towns and villages as possible. He knew he was only sacrificing the men on the front lines to let the citizens escape, but he had no other choice. This was why he was still on the front lines himself. He would not run when his men were here, dying to protect the lives of every beastkin in the rural kingdom. "Understand, sir. I was wrong." The soldier felt new vigor and quickly ran out of the command tent. He knew their general was not going to run away. He was here to give them support and die with them if such a thing came to be. Beastchonia capital, rural kingdom. Your Majesty, General Tolan is holding the line the best he can, but after that attack, it seems we are on the losing end. An old man with white wings on his back and gray hair announced as he walked into the room. Klain let out a sigh and tapped the armrest of his throne. "You are my military advisor. What do you think I should do, Briggs?" "I am at a loss myself, Your Highness. Until we get reinforcements from Stonehammer, we will not be able to formulate any plans except for what we have now. Our lack of manpower is our biggest issue at this time. We would be holding out fine if half our forces were not wiped out. If they decided to launch another attack of that scale, the war will be lost." Briggs let out a sigh. He had been trying to formulate plan after plan, but nothing he came up with was worth mentioning. He really could not come up with any way of getting out of this mess. At that moment, the doors to the throne room opened, and a young girl walked in. She was not of the beastkin race, but of the human race. This was the adopted daughter that Klain had taken in recently, Princess Tilia. "Your Majesty, I have a suggestion, if I may be so bold." Klain smiled and nodded his head. "Little Tilia, I have told you many times to just call me father. Anyway, that is not important right now. What is your suggestion?" "I wish to go to the front lines. Although my ability to fight is lacking, I can at least help heal the injured. I cannot stand by while people are dying. I have only been in the rural kingdom for a short while, but everyone has already been so kind to me. I do not wish to be sitting idly if it means letting more people die." Tilia clenched her fist and gazed at Klain with a strong determination. She had mustered up every last ounce of her courage to make this decision. She did not want to lose out to her own fear now. "Father, fifth sister is right. I will also go to the front lines. My abilities with magic can be useful there." Another person came into the room. It was a young man who resembled Klain a lot. He stood next to Tilia and placed his big hand on her head and smiled. "I will also protect fifth sister." This young man was Klain's son, the second Prince Lucas. At first, he was one of the ones who glared at Tilia when she was announced to be his new sister. He despised her due to her race. But because of how kind and cute Tilia was, his heart quickly melted, turning him into a doting older brother. He was not the only one either. All the princesses and princes now doted on her. She had become someone important to the entire royal family. When he heard she was willing to rush to the front lines, he could not sit still and wanted to go with her to keep her out of danger. Father, another 4 people walked in, all wearing armor and wielding swords. They were all the princes and princesses of the rural kingdom. A young, elegant tiger girl walked forward and knelt down. Father, we have all come to a decision. My sisters and brothers will also go to the battlefield. We will do our best to keep our people safe. Claim began to tear up. He knew this was mostly due to Tilia, but he still felt his kids were all good. I will allow it. Remember one thing. The battlefield is not a place you can play around in. Your life or death can be decided at any second. I pray that you will all be safe. Yes, Father. All the princes and princesses, including Tilia, all bowed their heads before turning around and leaving the throne room. Your Majesty, are you sure you want to let them go? Briggs asked. You saw their determination. They would go even if I told them not to. But this is also good. I would rather them fight on the front lines and die there than be taken as slaves. Our current situation is dire. We can only hold off for a few more days. After that, the humans will push further and further into our homelands. Many will suffer. Klain leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Briggs, don't let that girl find out little Tilia is going to the front lines. In fact, send someone to escort her to Stonehammer. If anything, the future hope for all beastkin lies with her. Right away, Your Majesty. A few days passed, and Kana was currently sitting beside Seely's bed, pointing her finger at her. How could you have been so stupid? You knew that the forest gets even more dangerous the further you go in, but you still decided to go so deep. If I had not arrived in time, you would have died. Kana, Seely felt strange. She was being scolded by a girl who looked no more than 10 years of age, who had tears in her eyes. But at the same time, she felt warmth well up from within her. Kana really cared about her and saw her as family. Seely reached out and ran her fingers through Kana's hair and forced a smile. I was wrong. I won't ever do it again. Kana's tear-filled eyes turned upwards as she looked at Seely. You better not. I do not ever want to see you in such a state ever again. Kana wanted to yell more, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Seely looked like she knew she was in the wrong. Miss Kana, there is news. A maid came running into the room. She was having a hard time breathing, as if she had just run a few kilometers to get here. What news? Seely asked. Princess Tilia, along with the other princes and princesses, have all left the capital in secret. The maid replied. Where is she headed? Kana stood and asked. If she was heading where she thinks Tilia was heading, then Kana would need to leave right away. The front lines. I was able to get one of the other maids in the palace to talk. For some reason, the king had locked the information from outsiders. Normally, when members of royalty were heading to the front lines, they would talk about it, as if it was some kind of big event to boost morale. But this time, the maid explained. Then give me a bag ready. I will be heading out. Kana said. Kana, you're going too? Seely asked, her voice filled with worry. I will not let harm come to Tilia. Like you, she is my sister as well. Kana said before walking towards the door, only to turn around and run back to Seely's bed, hugging her. Stay here and be safe. I will be back once the war is over. Seely was at a loss for what to say. She knew Kana was not going to change her mind. Kana did not say any more. After a few minutes, she pushed herself away from Seely and walked out of the room. It was only when she disappeared that Seely finally shouted, You better come back alive, or I will find your corpse and bring you back to life just to scold you for lying to me. Kana paused her steps and smiled before running downstairs. But when she got to the bottom of the stairs, the maids were letting in a man in shiny metal armor. Ah, Miss Kana, it is good that you are here. I have instructions from the king to lead you and Miss Seely to Stonehammer. This is only temporary, and is to ensure both of you are safe during this time of war. Bring Seely. I will not be going, Kana said before heading up towards her bedroom. She did not even turn to look back at the man in shiny metal armor. The man in shiny metal armor looked at the maid next to him for some kind of answer. The maid only smiled and said, "Miss Kana has made her decision, so it would be best if you just follow what she has said. If you would please take a seat. I need to get Miss Seeley ready to leave." "I won't be leaving." Seeley's voice could be heard at the top of the stairs. She wanted to see Kana off, so she forced herself out of bed, even though her injuries were not fully healed. "Miss Seeley, why did you get up?" The maid hurried upstairs to support Seeley. "I came to see Kana off. Plus, my injuries are almost fully healed. It is just my internal injuries that still need a bit of time to heal." Seeley replied with a smile. "Miss Seeley, I am under strict order by the king to bring the two of you away. Please do not make this difficult for me." The man in shiny metal armor stood up. He knew the king would not be happy if he did not follow through with his orders. "It doesn't matter. If Kana is going to the border, then the tides will turn in our favor. That girl is much more powerful than you think." One light stroke of her sword was enough to split the ground open. If she were to use her full strength, then the enemy will have no chance. It will be pointless for us to go to Stonehammer only to return a few days later. And I can guarantee that girl won't die easy. Not with that man watching her back. Seeley thought of Krage, who was able to fly around with ease. She knew he was not a simple man, and he had a strong desire to protect Kana. The man with shiny metal armor was not sure what he should do. "Seeley is right. If I am about to die, my handsome husband will come to me. You do not need to worry." Kana was now fully dressed in leather armor with her sword at her side. Her fiery, crimson hair fluttered as she walked down the stairs. When she reached the bottom, she looked up at Seeley, who was still standing at the top of the stairs, and smiled. "Seeley, I will be back. You should go back and rest." Good luck, Kana." The two girls completely ignored the man in shiny metal armor. One went back towards their room, while the other walked past the man in shiny metal armor, opened the front door, and disappeared in an instant. Wait, how am I supposed to explain this to the king? After Kana left the house, she ran as fast as she could towards the border. She weaved in and out of the crowd of people lining the streets, and in no time at all, she had reached the main gate, leaving the capital altogether. "Kana, are you sure you are not being too rash?" Lyserth asked. "Whether I am being rash or not, it does not matter. I cannot let Tilia go into battle alone. This is also not just about Tilia either. If the rural kingdom does fall, then not just all beastkin, but myself as well will be in trouble. I do not wish to be put in such a position. I just want to level up and cast cool spells. Not to mention, if I want to search for attributes to learn different magic besides fire, I will need to roam around and search for it. I wouldn't be able to do that if the humans win this war." Kana had many reasons for going to the border. Some were selfish, some were not. But this was the same for everyone. War was always started for selfish reasons. Like the humans wanting to have full dominance over the beastkin, turning them into slaves and making them do things against their will. Kana did not want a life that would keep her on the run. She wanted to roam around and explore the world a little at a time at a leisurely pace. Then I can only warn you to watch out for the high priest of the Euthia theocracy. Their spells can hinder you or even severely injure you even as strong as you are now. Lyserth understood where Kana was coming from. The current her was good enough to fight many things, but there were still many monsters and beings in this world much stronger than her. Plus, her goal to get strong is only so she can cast cool spells, nothing more. "I will." Kana continued forward. Day after day, she charged forward, only stopping to rest each night. After 4 days of running at full speed, she finally arrived at the entrance of Fermingselos. When she entered, the city was busy with movement. There were many soldiers running around trying to help citizens with their things. Many carts were sprawled out here, and they were full of either people or supplies. "Only take what you can carry. We need to leave as quickly as possible," a soldier yelled out. Kana walked down the street toward a certain shop. She was headed to the Trident armor shop. She wanted to check on Califia and her father. When she arrived, she noticed this section of the city was completely deserted already. Kana felt something was off when she saw that the shop's door was wide open. As she walked up to the shop, a ruckus could be heard coming from inside. "Let me go. Do you think you can escape? Your father was drafted to the front lines, and all the people in this part of the city have already evacuated. I have had my eye on you for a long time since I've come to this city. Now I'll chain you up and bring you back to my house and train you really well." A man's gruff voice could be heard loud and clear from inside as well. Kana's rage began to well up as she drew her sword and dashed into the shop. When she entered, she saw Califia's hands being grabbed by a bald-headed human that was on the chubby side. "Let go of her now." Huh. The bald-headed man never expected someone to interrupt him. When he turned to see a young girl around 10 years of age with fiery red hair, holding a sword in her hand, he let out a loud laugh. "Huh, you're just a pipsqueak. What can you do to me?" Califia saw Kana, and her eyes began to tear up as she yelled out, "Goddess Kana! Goddess!" Aha! You kids nowadays sure have a lot of imagination. The bald-headed man chuckled. He had no intention of letting Califia go. "Since you won't let go, I guess that means you do not want to live. Then so be it." Kana stomped her foot into the floor, causing the floorboards to explode all over the place as she charged forward with her sword in her hand. In a blink of an eye, Kana was already in front of the bald-headed man, slashing down toward his arms. Ah! A horrid scream was heard as Kana severed the bald-headed man's arms from the elbow down. He fell back onto the floor in disbelief. He did not expect such a little girl to be so powerful. Blood dripped from his severed arms, causing the bald-headed man's face to pale. Kana's eyes were cold as ice as she looked down at the bald-headed man, who looked back up at her with fearful eyes. When he saw Kana raise her sword to finish the job, the bald-headed man shook violently as sweat began dripping from his hair. The air was suddenly filled with the aroma of urine. "Please don't kill me. I know I made a mistake. You already cut off my arms, making it impossible for me to do this again. So please let me live. People like you are why I hate most humans." After saying this, Kana slashed her sword sideways, severing the bald-headed man's head from his neck. Kana then turned to Califia, who was staring at Kana with sparkles in her eyes, not even caring that 2 severed hands were still holding her wrist. She clasped her hands together and went to jump forward to hug Kana, only to have Kana step to the side, causing Califia to hug nothing but air and fall forward and onto the floor. Califia stood up and pouted as she asked, "Goddess Kana, why did you move? Your eyes had a weird look in them." Kana did not waste much time after saving Califia. She quickly helped Califia pack some clothes before sending her off with one of the soldiers. After that, she headed full speed towards the front lines. 3 days later, the smell of blood filled the air. "I'm getting close. It seems the rural kingdom is not doing too well if the battle has already reached this far," Lyserth said, her voice grim. "Even if they are not doing good, I must still try to do what I can." Kana said as she continued forward, "If you run into a situation you cannot handle, please retreat. This is all I will ask." Lyserth pleaded, I will. I promise." Kana also did not want to die. If things looked bad, she would retreat as quickly as possible. Kana had finally arrived at the battlefield, but there were only a few soldiers clashing on the sides at this time. It was a single female leopard beastkin against 2 humans. The beastkin was covered in many cuts and bruises. You could tell from one look she was almost out of energy, but she still kept defending, not willing to give in. Kana quickly rushed forward with her sword drawn. The humans didn't even realize she was there until it was too late. Kana jumped up, spinning her body around while slashing out with her sword. The sharp edge of her sword sliced clean through the 2 humans' necks, as if she was not cutting through flesh and bone, but the air itself. Their bodies were still in an attack motion as they died, causing their heads to slip from their necks. They died without even knowing how they had died. The female beastkin was stunned at what had just happened. She thought she was going to die at any time. She knew she was just prolonging the inevitable, but she still held on to hope that maybe she would be able to survive somehow. Tears welled up in her eyes when she realized she really had survived. But when she looked at Kana, who was standing there with her sword dripping in blood, she couldn't help but feel shocked at how young her savior was. Realizing she was staring, she quickly composed herself and bowed her head, saying, "Thank you for saving my life." "You're welcome. Can you tell me where the main force is?" Kana asked. The beastkin looked at Kana and pointed towards the northwest. "A half-day travel that way. You should—" "Thanks," Kana yelled, not letting the girl finish speaking before she took off in the direction the girl had pointed. As Kana made her way forward, she killed any human she saw without any hesitation as she made her way to the main battlefield. The closer she got, the more clashes between beastkin and humans she saw. When the area became too condensed with fighting, she only killed the humans blocking her path until finally, after 3 hours, she finally saw the massive cluster of human soldiers. Kana's eyes flashed a cold light. She gripped the sword in her hand and slowed her pace. "Since they wish to harm so many innocent people, then I will give them a taste of hell before they go and see the king of hell himself." Kana sucked in a large amount of air before suddenly releasing it. "Roar!" Her loud roar shook the battlefield as if an ancient beast from the days of old had reappeared in this world. The beastkin who heard the roar felt as if they were reinvigorated, while the humans felt a massive pressure weighing down onto them. Inside the beastkin base camp, Tilia was sitting around a table looking at the situation on the battlefield. "Roar!" Tilia stood up and looked in the direction the roar had come from, her eyes lighting up. "Kana, fifth sister, what's wrong?" "Kana?" One of the princesses called out. "She's here. She's here to help. We may still have a chance." Tilia yelled out. She did not know why. She could feel it deep within herself that roar came from Kana. It was a gut feeling that allowed her to feel hope in such a dire situation. After Kana's roar, the whole battlefield became silent. All eyes turned towards the sound. They only saw a small girl around 10 years of age. She had 2 horns on her head, a pair of wings on her back, and a lizard tail. Although she looked very cute and innocent, the cold light in her eyes and the roar just now made all the human soldiers who could see her wary of her. Kana shot forward and took in a deep breath. Baby breath. Unlike her normal stream of flame that she used before, this was like a flood being released from her mouth. A wave of flames raced forward at an unbelievable speed, quickly reaching the mass of humans. Screams of pain and horror filled the air as the flames swept over the human soldiers. With their metal armors melting to their skin, it was as if they were stuck in a frying pan being grilled alive with no escape. Kana's baby breath lasted a good 3 minutes before finally letting up, but the wave of flame never stopped moving forward. It was as if it had a life of its own. Tens of thousands of human soldiers were suddenly burnt to a crisp, quickly turning the tides on this part of the battlefield. But Kana was not done. She gripped her sword tightly and rushed forward straight into the mass of human soldiers. MP 4000-3950/4000. The Beastkin army was shocked at first, but once they saw the little figuring taking the lead, an earth-shattering roar came from the Beastkin army as their morale rose to great heights. The battle quickly resumed, and with newfound hope for a victory, the Beastkin army began fighting even harder. Kana's charge slowed as she ran into the main group of human soldiers. Her small body moved quickly, making it hard for the soldiers to land any strikes on her. Those that did land were as if they were striking metal, only causing sparks to appear as their swords cut through her leather armor. Kana's whole body became a weapon. She used every part of her body to kill the humans around her. From her sword, her hands, tail, and even her bare feet, all became weapons that reaped the lives of those that tried to attack her. But Kana did make one mistake. She charged too deep into the human soldier's front line and was now surrounded. "We got the little monster surrounded. Don't falter. Kill her," a human soldier yelled out, causing a roar within the crowd of humans. Kana's gaze was cold as she bared her teeth, which had 2 small fangs hanging down. She had her right arm stretched out holding her sword, her left hand placed down on the ground in front of her, but was slightly raised in the air, and her tail swished back and forth. Her fiery red hair fluttered in the wind as it blew across the battlefield. Her dragon eyes were filled with killing intent and bloodlust. The killing instincts of her race were slowly revealing themselves through this battle. Blood was splattered all over her person. But none of this mattered to her. She was watching the soldiers around her closely, waiting for them to attack. Attack! One human soldier yelled as not only swords, but even arrows and magic came flying her way. Beastkin Command Tent. General, I have a report from the front lines. A soldier came running into the tent, sweat dripping from his head. Tilia's eyes became anxious. She wondered if the feeling she had earlier was true or not. She hoped this soldier could answer her questions. She wanted to quickly ask if he had seen a little girl with a lizard tail, but before she could, she was pulled back to her seat by the second prince. Fifth sister, I know you have questions, but let him make his report first. Tilia pouted, but nodded her head. She knew better than to interrupt the soldier from making his report. Luckily, what she wanted to hear was what he came to report about. General, the tides have turned in our favor, although we are still outnumbered. The enemy's forces are slowly dwindling as an anomaly showed up on the battlefield. An anomaly? The general asked. Yes, sir. It is a little girl around 10 years of age. She has fiery red hair, 2 black horns, and a red-scaled lizard tail. After letting out a heavens-shaking roar, she released a massive flame attack as soon as she got to the front lines, killing tens of thousands of human soldiers almost instantly. This was enough to birth new light into our soldiers. They're now fighting with even more ferocity than before. On top of that, the little girl charged deep into the enemy lines, killing her way through, not caring for her safety in the slightest. Sir, if I may be so bold as to ask, but can you please give the order to protect that little girl? She is currently our guiding light, leading us through these dark times. Her role right now is more important than a few soldiers' lives. The soldier bowed his head low as he finished speaking. Do it. Protect her at all cost. Kana must not die. Tilia couldn't hold back anymore as she yelled out. After hearing the soldier describe the little girl, Tilia now knew 100% that it was Kana. The general looked at Tilia and nodded his head in agreement. He stood up and gave out an absolute command. Make sure she lives. Since Kana is working hard, I will be heading to the medical tents. Tilia quickly regained a firm resolve and rushed out of the command tent. Fifth sister. The second Prince Lucas grabbed his sword and quickly followed after Tilia. That little princess, although human, is very good. The general smiled. He realized the next generation was already stepping up on the big stage to help the kingdom. I can't be left behind. It is time I head to the front lines myself. Crown Prince Regis, I leave command to you. You will need to leave command to your subordinate. I will be joining you on the front lines. My sisters and brothers will be joining as well. We cannot sit around if our little sister is already working much harder than us. Crown Prince Regis announced. All the princes and princesses nodded their heads and donned their weapons and armor. The general looked at the young ones in front of him with tears welling up in his eyes. Our kingdom is blessed to have such amazing rulers. So be it, we will fight and die together. For the rural kingdom. The crown prince yelled out. For the rural kingdom. The princesses and princes, along with the general, also yelled out. Rural kingdom, capital city throne room. Report, your majesty. A guard in shiny metal armor walked into the room and knelt on the ground. Why are you here? Did I not tell you to send the 2 little lasses away? Claim was confused. He could have sworn he had sent out his order. It had been a few days. Why was he just now showing up? Your majesty, Miss Kana has rushed to the front lines. I cannot stop her. As for Miss Seeley, she was recently injured and is recuperating. But she also refuses to leave. I have spent the past few days trying to persuade her, but she won't leave the house, saying that with Kana on the front lines, there is no need to leave anymore. The guard in shiny metal armor explained. Klain sat back on his throne and let out a sigh, but suddenly burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. She is right. Good, good. Send the 20,000 soldiers who are protecting the capital to the front lines. When the reinforcement from Stonehammer show up, send them straight to the front lines to help clean up. We will put all our faith into the little girl. Your Majesty, is it not too hasty? Briggs felt his decision was too hasty. Who in their right mind would put their faith in a little girl? Hasty? Even if she were to fail, We would only prolong our capture if the humans break through our front lines, if we keep those soldiers here. I would rather put my faith in that little girl than sit back worrying. Having something to believe in is much better than having nothing at all. Do as I say, send the troops. Kana's eyes glowed with fiery light as she saw the mass of incoming attacks bearing down onto her. She stood up with her sword in her hand, tilted her head back, and shouted at the top of her lungs, "You fucking humans!" Roar! Kana let out another heaven-shaking roar, dispersing the arrows overhead as she jumped up and slashed her sword out, slicing one of the fireballs in two, all while using her tail and feet to kill any soldiers that got close to her. But even with her going all out on defense, she was still being bombarded by attacks from all sides. Her clothes were starting to become tatters, revealing her snow-white skin underneath. Although she was not getting hurt, her clothes were not able to endure. With no other choice, Kana whispered, "Transform." Strong gusts of wind surrounded Kana as her body grew slightly. Her crimson-red hair receded back in her head as red scales covered her body, and her humanoid body transformed into that of a baby dragon. Kana somersaulted in the air, slamming her tail down onto a human soldier's head, smashing him straight to the ground, forming a meat patty under her feet. She caught her sword in her paw and gripped its hilt, smiling at the fact that she could still use it. Kana's rampage continued in the middle of the human army. The circle around her got bigger and bigger as the human soldiers became fearful of even getting close to her. On the back lines at the enemy command tent, a group of high priests and the enemy general were standing at a table listening to a report a soldier had just brought in. There is actually such a race of demis that can do so much damage? General, you are naive. There was one race on this continent that could destroy human kingdoms with a single attack. Have you forgotten about the dragons? One of the high priests asked. Dragons, but I thought they were all killed off. The general was confused. From the old records, all dragons were wiped off the continent to pave the way for humans to be the strongest power. That was the case, but you forget how many continents our world has. There are 7 known continents, so it is possible for more dragons to exist. At any rate, even a baby dragon is enough to do major damage to our forces. I will head out and deal with it. The priest who spoke was someone Kana would recognize. He was the same man who used a high-level magic spell to destroy the merchant caravan Kana was riding on. High Priest Randalls. High Priest Randalls, allow me to go to the front lines instead. There is no need for someone such as yourself to handle such a mundane task. The general quickly stepped forward and offered to go. Everyone around could tell he was trying to kiss up to the high priest. No, if it is indeed a baby dragon, your sword will be worthless. Out of everyone here, only I have the power to fight on equal footing with a dragon. A baby dragon is nothing in my eyes. High Priest Randalls waved his hand, disappearing from the command tent. The battle was slowly turning in favor of the rural kingdom, thanks to Kana causing such a stir. The human forces were slowly becoming chaotic. The area of the battlefield she was in was covered in blood. Even her body was now covered in fresh blood that dripped from her claws, tail, horns, and even her jaw. The smell of iron was thick in the air as Kana spat out a chunk of flesh. This is endless. Their army is massive. I would suggest using your baby breath some more, but we run the risk of running out of mana when we need it the most. Those high priests may still be around, and from the power of their attacks, it is best to avoid them. Lyserth wished there was an easier way to make things go faster, but right now, she was not seeing any way at all. Oh, to think a baby dragon is really here. Little one, I suggest you stay out of this war. A voice came from high in the sky as a man in white robes lined with a gold trim floated down. Kana felt a chill run down her spine as she looked up. Her eyes narrowed. Her instincts were screaming this man was dangerous. But even still, she could not retreat, not when so much was at stake. And if say I will continue to fight? Kana asked. She gripped her sword, getting ready to fight at a second's notice. Then I will take your head and give it to the Pope so he can finish off his collection. You see, He has a whole room lined with your brethren's heads. High Priest Randall's voice grew cold, but this did not bother Kana one bit, as she became lost in thought. Lyserth, I think I figured out a way to solve our problem. Kana suddenly had a brilliant idea. Oh, Lyserth was intrigued. She never thought at a time like this Kana would come up with a plan. Kana quickly explained her plan to Lyserth, who let out a chuckle. It truly will be a good way to save on the hassle. I agree to this plan. Kana giggled to herself. Her idea was masterful. She stretched out her paw and pointed at the high priest and shouted, "Hey, Baldy, who can't even get a girlfriend. I hate to tell you this, but I plan to kill more and more humans until you all retreat." After saying this, she quickly turned around, shook her red lizard butt at the high priest, pulled her bottom eyelid, and stuck her tongue out at him. "Blah! You can't touch my dragon, but..." High Priest Randall's face turned red. He had never been so embarrassed in all his life. What angered him the most was not the butt shaking or the fact that she stuck her tongue out at him, but she called him bald. Of all things, she called him bald. He wore his priest's hat all the time in order to cover up his bald spot. How did the damn dragon know he was bald? He had been trying to hide his bald spot from everyone. The more he thought about how loud she yelled such a thing out in public, the more angered he got. "You damn dragon, I will have your head." High Priest Randall's finally lost his composure and began casting magic left and right, sending it flying into the human soldier front lines, not caring how many he killed in the process. Screams of pain could be heard as spell after spell slammed into the human soldiers, reaping life after life or severely injuring those that were hit. Kana snickered as she quickly zigzagged through the mass of soldiers. "Huh, it worked. Look how angry he is. You never surprise me with how easily you are able to anger people." Lyserth was very surprised that Kana's plan went off without a hitch. Well, think about it. Humans are prideful, especially the ones who are currently leading this war. They think so highly of themselves that if someone disrespects them, they would find a shame they could never live down unless the party who shamed them is dead. That priest guy looks composed, but the more composed and domineering he is, the more likely he is to flip out over the smallest thing. Plus, for what I understand, these people from the Euthia theocracy are all so prideful they would never let anyone disrespect them. Thinking of this, Kana's eyes shined as she suddenly yelled out, "Your goddess's feet smell like rotten cheese." Lying on a couch, hunched over its side, gazing on a peeled grape, Euthia's face was beet red. "My feet don't stink, says you." Say leaned over, took a sniff of Euthia's feet, and then held her nose. "Phew, they don't stink." Euthia brought her foot to her nose and took a sniff. Her nose suddenly wrinkled up. She made a strange face as she yelled out, "Why the hell do they stink? You damn lizard." High Priest Randall's was even more enraged now that his goddess was made fun of. This was complete blasphemy. He was so enraged he started using larger-scale spells, killing thousands of his own men every attack. The entire time Kana was running at full speed laughing as she did, which was infuriating the high priest even more. At the human command tent, a soldier came running in. His face was pale, and his armor was drenched in sweat. "General, we have a problem." "What's wrong now?" the general asked. He was exasperated. He had no idea what was going on today. "Sir, we're losing thousands of men every second," the soldier replied, still trying to catch his breath. He ran as fast as he could to get here, so he was still having a hard time catching his breath. What do you mean? Is it that dragon again?" The general was shouting all his questions. If they were losing thousands of soldiers every second, didn't that mean that they would soon lose almost all their men? "No, sir. It is not the dragon. But, the soldier looked around the room. His gaze fell on the high priest in the room, not sure if he should speak or not. "It's fine, lad. Go ahead and say what you need to say," one of the high priests said with a bright smile on his face. The soldier gulped and mustered up his courage as he answered. "High Priest Randall's is the one massacring our men while chasing after the dragon." "I see. What? Does he wish for us to lose this war?" The general flipped out and charged out of the tent, not caring about anything else. The other high priests all stood there, trying to comprehend what was just said, until one finally asked, "Can you repeat that, lad?" "Your Holiness, I said that High Priest Randalls is massacring our soldiers as he chases after the dragon." The soldier replied. He was now sweating head to toe for another reason. The whole room seemed to have been engulfed in a massive killing intent. "That damn idiot! What does the Pope see in him?" One of the high priests yelled out before running out of the command tent as well, followed by the other high priests. On the other side of the front lines, Tilia was hard at work healing all the wounded. There was no end to the work. The injured were steadily coming in one after the other. Although the enemy soldiers were declining, the front lines between the two armies were still fighting hard. Currently, on the front lines, the general, as well as the prince and princesses, were covered in mud and blood as they swung their swords and cast magic at their foes. "Ha! Listen to the sounds coming from the middle of the group. It seems our little friend is doing a hell of a job." The general let out a hearty laugh as he stabbed his sword through the chest of the human in front of him. "I just hope she does not get hurt, or Fifth Sister will be sad," Crown Prince Regis said. "Randalls, what are you doing?" One of the high priests had finally arrived in front of High Priest Randalls, trying to stop him from continuing his rampage. "Get out of my way. I cannot let that dragon go. Even if it is you guys, I will still push my way through." High Priest Randalls yelled out. He was so angry right now that he did not care who it was. He would even kill other priests if they got his way. He could not allow his secret to get out or allow someone who slanders his goddess's name to go free. "You? Fine. If that is how you want it, then I will have no choice. Everyone take Randalls down." The high priest yelled out. The others came forward, and all of a sudden, magic was being thrown left and right. Kana, who was still running, slowed down when she heard explosions behind her. Kana stood on her hind legs and scratched her head. "Are they idiots? Almost all humans are dumb, Kana. There are very few who are not stupid in some way or another. But these guys are utter morons. They are attacking each other and even killing more of their men faster than they were before." Lyserth snickered. She found the whole thing very amusing. Let them fight amongst themselves. Kana turned her head skyward and saw the sky beginning to darken. "Lyserth, I have a bad feeling. This power, I felt it once in the past. After that, all the dragons stopped going to the temple. Kana, you need to get out of here, and quickly." Lyserth felt fear, something she had not felt in a long time. Lyserth had a right to feel fear as the clouds not only continued together, but also began to spin. In the center, a large eye appeared. It gazed down on all of those across the battled field, as if a god was looking down on the mortals below. High Priest Randalls and the other high priests all stopped fighting and suddenly knelt on the ground. A loud, booming voice filled the skies as the eye landed on the high priests. "You five return to the citadel and receive your punishment." "Yes, your grace." Randalls and the other priests looked haggard and beaten up, quickly answered before disappearing from everyone's sight. Once the priests were gone, the eye then looked down on Kana, sending a chill down her spine. Kana instinctively began to back up and cower. She was very frightened of the eye in the sky. Since coming to this world, she had seen many things, but this was beyond anything she had seen as of yet. She wanted to curl up into a ball and cover her eyes, but no matter how much she wished to look away, she couldn't. She felt if she did, she would be instantly killed. To think one of the dragon race actually survived. It is no wonder the doctrine says you are born of the devils. Since it would be bad if you live to grow stronger, I will now cast judgment in the name of our goddess Euthia onto thee. Divine punishment. The voice rang out, causing the whole sky to quake. Kana, run. Run. Lyserth's voice rang out loudly in Kana's mind, breaking her out of her state of fear. Kana quickly turned to run with her tail tucked between her legs. She did not dare stick around. Whatever was about to come was not something she could handle. A massive magic circle formed overhead. The eye in the center of the vortex in the sky followed Kana's movements with ease. Kana felt like every scale on her body was being stripped away, leaving her exposed for all to see. "Kana, it's no use. That eye is following us wherever we go. You need to take up a defensive stance. Lyserth knew that they were really in trouble this time. Kana stopped her steps and stabbed her sword into the ground and huddled behind it. Handsome husband said to use this to block an attack until he arrived. Even Kana knew the thin blade of her sword was not going to block any kind of an attack, but she had no other ideas or options. She could only believe in her handsome husband and hope he could help her as he promised. Kana, I do not know if I have enough power to block this attack, but I will use the rest of my life force to block it, Lyserth announced as Kana's body suddenly shined with a blue light. The image of a beautiful woman once more appeared in front of Kana. It was 10 times fainter than when Kana saw Lyserth the first time. Lyserth, what are you doing? You're going to disappear. Kana had tears in her eyes. She had nowhere to run, but she did not want to lose Lyserth either. In a short time they had been together, Lyserth had given her so much. She saw Lyserth as a mother figure. Kana reached out with her paws, trying to pull the blue light back in her, but no matter how much she tried, her paws kept going right through the blue light. Kana had a look of desperation on her face. She frantically kept trying to pull Lyserth back inside her as she cried out, "No, no, Lyserth, stop, don't leave me." The bright light from the magic circle finally condensed into a large ball of light. A ray of light shot through the sky straight at Kana. The width of the beam was a few kilometers wide, destroying everything in its path. The human soldiers that got caught in the beam were vaporized. Lyserth waved her hand, creating a massive shield in front of her. The bright light slammed into the shield, instantly causing it to form cracks. Lyserth's body flickered as the rest of her life force began to burn away. She turned to Kana with a smile on her face. Kana, you are the last of our kind. No, whether you're the last of our kind or not, I do not regret using my life force to protect someone who is important to me. Live on and live a long-lasting life. Lyserth smiled brightly as tears rolled down her face. I wonder if this was what it was like to have a daughter. The ray of light grew stronger, and Lyserth's body slowly began to disappear. Kana's eyes were filled with tears as she reached out once more to try to grab hold of Lyserth. But no matter what she did, it was already too late. She watched the shield in front of her that Lyserth created to protect her shatter into balls of light and float up into the sky. Roar! Lyserth, who she cared so much about, was now gone. She had burned her life force in order to try to protect her, but even with her last-ditch effort, the ray of light still could not be stopped. The ray of light passed over Kana, causing her to cry out as she felt her scales burning right off her body. The sword in front of her was able to weaken the ray of light slightly, but it was still not enough. Burn marks began to form on Kana's body as her skin began to burn away, turning into ash as it did. Lyserth, I will be joining you soon. Kana whispered, but she remembered what Lyserth said before she disappeared, making a newfound determination well up inside her. No, I will try to survive this. Transform, Kana said softly as she let out another roar and turned back into her humanoid form. Her heart hurt. She was not afraid of death. She was afraid of making the people she was leaving behind sad. She wanted to live on and preserve the life that Lyserth used the last of her life force to protect. She turned back into her humanoid form because it was smaller and could hide behind the sword more. Even though her skin was burning off layer by layer, she gritted her teeth and dragged her wounded body up close to the sword. She thought of how her handsome husband had promised to save her when she was in a dire situation and smiled bitterly as she choked on her tears. Hick, liar. I'm sorry I am late. A melodic voice filled Kana's ears as her body was suddenly enveloped in warmth. The spell I cast on you did not trigger quickly enough, and now you are in such a state. I can only apologize. Kana's eyes slowly opened, and Kray's handsome face filled her view. Tears welled up in her eyes as she used what energy she had left to pound on his chest. Why didn't you come sooner? If you had come sooner, Lyserth would not have needed to disappear. Kray's heart hurt seeing the little girl crying in his arms. He had promised to save her, but he still arrived too late. He looked at the flesh wounds all over her body created by the ray of light and anger welled up inside him. I know. You can hate me. You can despise me. You can beat me however you please. But first, let me take care of the ones who hurt my precious wife. Kana's tears rolled down her cheeks as she gripped Cray's shirt and buried her face into his chest. She knew this was not his fault, but she still wished he had come sooner. Cray's heart hurt for the small girl in his arms. He held her close while casting healing magic on her. A green glow surrounded Kana, slowly healing her wounds. He turned and looked at the ray of light that was still hitting him and narrowed his eyes. Within that ray of light, he could see a few lingering balls of blue light. He quickly waved his hand, wrapping those balls of blue light in magic power, and condensed them together. He then directed them at Kana and sent them into the spot between her brow. He had long known since he first met here that Kana had another soul inside her. He figured the only reason Kana was unharmed now was due to this soul willingly using the last of her life force to protect Kana. He figured that this was the person called Lyserth that Kana was crying about. They were lucky. Since there were still remnants of her soul left, there was a chance to try to nourish her soul if they could find the right items. Such items would be hard to come by, but they did exist, just not on this continent. Kana, the remnants of your friend's soul were sent back into your soul sea, where they will not disperse. In the future, when you're stronger, there's a high chance you might be able to revive her. Not just as a soul, but back to a real live living being. Cray's voice was filled with warmth as he talked. Kana lifted her head, and her big watery eyes met his. Do you really mean it? Cray smiled and nodded his head. I would not lie to you. When the time comes, I will go with you and travel the world until we find the items. Do you promise? Kana asked as she slowly began to settle down. I promise. Cray smiled and leaned down, kissing the top of Kana's head. Let me take care of those who hurt you. Kana nodded and pushed her face into Cray's chest once again and closed her eyes. She felt safe in Cray's arms, as if he could keep everything in the world from hurting her. She slowly began to doze off. Cray saw that she was now sleeping peacefully and smiled softly. This smile did not last long as he stood up and turned toward the ray of light. He waved his hand, dispersing it into balls of light. The eye up in the clouds narrowed as he looked at the handsome man on the ground, holding the small girl with a red lizard tail. You dare stand in the way of the church when it is in the process of judging sinners. The voice boomed out across the land. Cray sneered and waved his hand behind him gently. Boom! The landscape suddenly changed, and anyone or thing was suddenly wiped out of existence. 90% of the human army was wiped out with a gentle wave of Cray's hand. Oh, if I'm not wrong, he is close to godhood, Euthia said as she slipped on her shoes. Are you still going? Say asked as she stretched her arms and legs. It has been a long time since any goddesses have descended down to the mortal world, Euthia explained. She was already angered by the fact that someone dared to hurt the cute little dragon girl she had blessed. When she saw Kana's tears, she was already about to destroy the world. In the end, she and Say were fighting about it when Cray showed up. Then I will go with you. I will give her my blessing myself. She deserves it, Say said. Her normally stoic face revealed a rare smile that was enough to make any man's heart melt. Then let's go. Euthia grabbed Say's hand, and the two disappeared. Cray looked up at the sky with his cold eyes. Your little war has caused my wife to be sad. Because of this, you and everyone who is involved from the human domains will die. You dare threaten me? The voice from the eye boomed across the sky once again. Hold it. Part of the clouds in the sky suddenly parted, and a golden holy light shined down, landing on Cray. Two figures floated down. One was a nine-tailed fox, while the other was a black-winged angel. They walked through the air as if they were walking down a set of stairs. Who are you? The voice in the eye yelled out. It could feel a strong power emanating off the two figures. Who are we? I'm glad you asked. Euthia suddenly snapped her fingers, and Say, in her clothes, suddenly changed to Miko outfits and began performing many different poses as they shouted. We are the great and wonderful, magical lyrical goddesses of light. We will smite all evil from the face of the world. Well, the last part, not so much. We are too lazy. Euthia stuck her tongue out and knocked her head with her fist and winked. Euthia, they seem to be in a state of shock, she said as she pointed down at the humans and beastkin all staring up at them strangely. But I'm sure we did it perfectly. Euthia looked around and scratched her head, trying to figure out what she did wrong. She wanted to know where the cheers were. Where were the "I love you, Euthia" shouts? Should I sing a song? Please don't. The last time you sang a song, the great goddess Heslia almost died of laughter. Say quickly reached out and covered Euthia's mouth. Muff, I thought I swinded goof. But I thought I sounded good, Euthia said in a muffled tone. It was good, but you were singing songs about penises without realizing it. Not to mention you were singing with such conviction that no one wanted to interrupt you. Say replied. Wait, what? That song was about penises? Fucking Alicia. She lied to me. Euthia yelled out, her face burning red. She decided to quickly change the subject. Never mind. Let's just do what we set out to do. Euthia stood in midair and pointed at the eye. You stupid mortals think you are all great just because you can do a little eye trick. I can do eye tricks too. Euthia flicked her fingers, and the eyes suddenly looked much more glamorous. Purple eye makeup, long eyelashes, and even the irises were recolored. Euthia smiled and nodded at her handiwork. Much better now, you do not look so evil. The beastkin below suddenly burst out laughing. It was true, the eye no longer looked sinister or evil. It looked like an eye from a highborn lady. You, the voice from the eye yelled out. Euthia theocracy, the holy citadel. In the main holy chambers that only the Pope was allowed to enter, an old man was staring at the mirror in front of him, looking at his amazing new eye makeup. His face was crimson red, and his brows were so furrowed that the eyebrows were beginning to merge. Veins began to bulge out of his head. He was so angry and had no one to yell at for it. What was worse was that he could not get the damn makeup off. He couldn't leave his chambers, or he would be ruining his prestigious image. All he could do was yell out his rage. That goddamn demi-human. Euthia, it looks pretty. Say gave a thumbs up. They could easily hear the old man screaming his head off in his holy chambers. All right, the reason I came down here. Euthia finally remembered that she came to the mortal realm for a reason. She floated down and landed in front of Crage, who was hugging Kana in his arms. He was watching Euthia closely, being very wary of her. Relax, handsome. I have no intentions of hurting this little one. I would not have given her my blessing if I meant her harm. Yes, the soul inside her was damaged severely. If you had not collected what was left, it would have been gone for good. Thinking for a moment, Euthia came to a decision. I will not help her with this. It will be good for her to go out and explore the world. But handsome man, I will tell you this, the place she needs to go is far from here on an undiscovered continent, where those who are close to becoming gods roam. Until she is close to you in strength, do not let her go anywhere near there, do you understand? I would never put her in harm's way. Crage readily agreed. It seems this little one picked a good husband. Make sure you take better care of her from now on. I will strengthen the bond between you two. It will give you a new skill that will allow you two to teleport to each other no matter where you are. Euthia waved her hand, and both Crage and Kana glowed a dazzling light. Soulmates. The strength of your love has allowed you to form a connection beyond time and space. You can now teleport to your spouse no matter where they are. This skill is much faster than the one you use. I hope you cherish this little one, because if you don't, you will be less of a man once I am done with you. Euthia made a scissor-cutting motion with her hand while smiling menacingly. Crage saw his new skill and bowed deeply to Euthia. I thank you for this grand gift. Good. I hope you will. Euthia nodded her head in approval. Now, then, turning her gaze skyward, she flew up into the air and pointed her finger at the big eye in the sky. I will now answer your question correctly on who I am. I am the moon fire goddess Euthia that you humans worship day and night. You use my name in the name of your atrocious acts and condemning beastkin and other races, all the while worshipping a beastkin the entire time. How do you feel, old bastard? The eye in the sky narrowed. How could the Pope not know this? But since the church was started on the premises of humans getting along with the other races, they could not change their deity now that they had been worshipping Euthia throughout the years. Because they could not change the deity, they got rid of all the statues of Euthia and created new ones in the image of a human, hiding the fact that Euthia was actually a nine-tailed fox. Humph! You cannot spout your blasphemy to me. Humans are meant to rule over all. Even a sinner like you who fakes calling herself a goddess is nothing compared to our goddess Euthia. Euthia stared at the eye with a blank expression. Her mind was working overtime, trying to figure out how she could not even compare to herself. She turned and looked at Say, who was still next to Crage, with a questioning look only to have Say shrug her shoulders, not knowing how to answer this either. Deciding thinking about such a thing was too much of a headache, she decided to just ignore it and continued. Well, believe what you want. Not like I care. Anyway, if you dare attack my little friend ever again, I will destroy your whole nation. If she is residing in a kingdom, you cannot attack it. As I have already displayed, I can attack you at any time, any place. So keep this in mind. As for this war that you put together, I would suggest retreating now. Do you understand? Humph. Fine, I will retreat for now. But as soon as that little dragon moves on, I will not hesitate to bring down these disgusting beastkin. The Pope yelled before the eye and the sky disappeared, and the sun once again took over the skies. Euthia shook her head. She knew that old man would end up trying something again in the future. But at the very least, for now, Kana would be able to grow stronger without the worry of losing her peaceful homeland. Euthia floated back down and landed next to Kana. She gently stroked her hair and smiled softly. This little girl has some interesting days ahead. Handsome man, make sure you take care of her well. I will leave now that things are under control. Say, did you give her your blessing? Not yet. I will wait a bit more. Right now, she is already very strong. If I gave her my blessing on top of yours while she is still at such a low level, her body would not be able to take it. Instead, for now, I made it so no one can mess with her mind. She is already gullible enough. If someone were to try to control her mind, she would never be able to resist. Say said with a smile before waving her hand. A light shined on Kana's body, and a black robe appeared on her body. This way, no one will see her body. Thank you. Crage replied once again, bowing his head. Oh, one thing before we leave. Do not raise your power anymore, or you will be forced to ascend. If you do not wish to leave your little wife behind, then do not try to level up anymore. Euthia said before holding Say's hand and disappearing. As she did, she left a few words behind. When she wakes up, tell her I stopped by. Crage watched the two goddesses who showed up and disappeared like a whirlwind and smiled as he held Kana close to his body. My little wife is very special. Even the goddesses of this world are looking out for her. Crage no longer cared about staying around here anymore. With Kana sleeping peacefully in his arms, he rose up into the sky and disappeared. Euthia, theocracy, those fucking bitches. The Pope yelled out. He had never been so embarrassed all his life. Just you wait until I reach godhood. Once I do, I will force the two of you to be my sex slaves for all eternity. Your Grace. A voice came from outside his holy chambers, causing the Pope's face to twitch. The Pope knew that this voice came from High Priest Randall's. We are no longer doing anything to the rural kingdom for the time being. Send some spies to keep tabs on the dragon. Once she is moved out of the rural kingdom, we will make our move once again. Yes, Your Grace. High Priest Randall sneered. He already knew the Pope had gone up against some kind of divine being. Although the Pope had told him to leave, he actually did not leave and stayed a fair distance away, keeping an eye on things. When he heard the divine being speaking, he couldn't believe his ears. He never expected the goddess he had believed all this time was actually a beastkin. He had completely lost all faith in the church. He decided he would need to do some thinking of his own before figuring out his next move. He also knew not to try to do anything to the dragon now that things have come to this. Rural kingdom, throne room. Who would have thought such a thing would happen? Have the army clean up the remnants of the enemy forces and then report back to me. When our little friend is returned home and recuperated, we will call her to appear before me." Klain was very happy. He was not anywhere close to being as powerful as the Pope, so to have things remedied in such a way was truly a blessing. "Your Majesty, should I send word to Miss Seelie?" Briggs asked. "No, I'm sure she already knows. But prepare a feast for when my children return home." Klain let out another joyous laugh. In truth, he was already ready to die. He never expected the tides would turn so well in their favor. When the Pope's magic suddenly appeared, he felt the end was near. Luckily, the heavens were shining down on his kingdom, and they were able to escape this catastrophe. Kana's home. Krage slowly floated down onto Kana's balcony. With Kana in his arms, he walked right into her room and laid her gently on one of the couches. He then went to work, getting a set of pajamas out for her and preparing a bath. Once he was done, he stripped her naked, settled her in the bath, and began washing the blood off her body and out of her hair. He did so with the utmost care, doing his best not to wake Kana. When she was all clean, he dried her off and dressed her before tucking her in her bed. He stood by the bed for a few minutes, watching her sleep before walking out of the room and downstairs, where Maid quickly saw him and ran to notify Seelie. Seelie came stumbling out of her room and called out to him. "Why are you here? How is Kana?" "She's fine. I made it in time. The war is over, so you do not need to worry. I already cleaned Kana up and dressed her. She is sound asleep, so please do not wake her up." Krage remembered Kana's crying face, and his mood gradually got darker. "I will be staying here for a while until she is better." Seelie was confused and worried by Krage's words. "Wait, what do you mean? What happened to Kana?" Krage didn't say anything. He floated up to the landing Seelie was standing on and reached out his hand. "I know you cannot get down the stairs by yourself at this time, so let me bring you to her." Seelie blushed and nodded. Although she knew Krage was Kana's husband, his handsome face and perfect body was something any girl would blush over. She took his hand and allowed him to bring her to Kana. When Seelie walked into the room and saw Kana sleeping peacefully on the bed, she let out a sigh of relief. She turned to Krage and asked, "Can you tell me what happened?" "It was like this." Krage explained everything he saw from the time he first arrived until they left. "Well, this explains a lot. Thank you for letting me know." Seelie stretched out her hand and tucked a lock of Kana's hair behind her ear. "To me, Kana is the only family I have left in this world. We may not be blood-related, and we may have only known each other for a short time, but Kana has changed my life. To me, she is my family. If something happened to her, I think I would go crazy trying to exact revenge for her." So cold, Kana's eyes opened to find herself in the last place she ever wanted to be again. "What, how? No, was that all a dream?" Kana looked around to see the snow-covered alley around her. Her whole body was covered in fresh snow. She wrapped her arms around her as she tried to get up, but the striking pain in her leg caused her to cry out. Tears welled up in her eyes when she realized she was in the same spot she had thought she had died in. She looked, trying to find the people she cared about the most. Seelie, handsome husband, Lyserth. Kana fell back to the ground in despair. She couldn't believe everything that had just happened was a dream. She never wanted to come back to this world. She wished to stay in the world where everyone who was kind to her lived. This world was full of hateful humans who did not care for others. Why was it all a dream? Why couldn't it be real? More tears flowed and rolled down Kana's cheeks. They fell from her face to the ground, melting the snow on contact before freezing. Kana wondered if she needed to die in order to go back to that wonderful world. As she was pondering this, footsteps could be heard coming from behind her. "Boss, look at this girl. If we clean her up, she might be worth a pretty penny. Grab her and check if she is a virgin. We can make that our selling point. If not, just toss her to the boys and charge the normal price per round." "Right away, boss." A slender man who resembled a Q-tip walked up with a sinister grin on his face. "Little girl, we will make sure you are warm and fed every day. So why don't you come with us? You only need to do a bit of work every night." Kana's crying stopped when she heard the man behind her. Her eyes suddenly turned cold. She shifted her hand in the snow and found something solid to grab onto. Without a care for the pain in her leg, she suddenly shot up and swung the item in her hand, which turned out to be a broken pole with a sharp pointy edge right at the Q-tip man's head. The Q-tip man was not expecting the seemingly harmless girl to attack so viciously and was unprepared when the sharp edge of the pole sliced through his face. Ah! Kana did not even give the Q-tip man a chance to do anything as she lunged up, stabbing the sharp pole into the Q-tip man's chest. The boss looked at Kana in surprise, even forgetting to react for a few seconds before finally snapping out of his daze. "You little bitch. Fine, I will teach you what little bitches are used for." He didn't care about his underling dying. He only cared about the fact that someone dared to go against him. He walked over and kicked Kana, who fell back onto the ground, and pinned her against the snow while undoing his pants. Kana was kicking, scratching, and biting with everything she had, causing the boss to get mad. He raised his fist and went to smash it down. Kana could see he was using all his strength. Kana couldn't help but scream out in fright. No! Kana's whole body was covered in sweat. Her eyes shot wide open. She found herself in someone's embrace. But the scent of the person was familiar, which calmed her down. She lifted her eyes and looked at the handsome face who was looking back at her with worry written all over it. Seeing this man caused Kana's eyes to tear up as she reached up and hugged the man by this neck, burying her face into his chest, crying. To the side, a young woman could be seen letting out a sigh of relief. It seemed she had a bad dream. But I also think it was more than just a dream. The man spoke as he rubbed Kana's back. Through his new connection with Kana, he could feel her emotions much more than before. Whatever she was going through in her dream was real to her. This much he knew. The two people in the room were Seely and Krage. They had both been watching over her since she had returned home. Seely looked at Krage, and Kana smiled. Looks like she fell back asleep. Kana had indeed fallen back asleep. Her eyes were closed as she rested her head on Krage's chest, her little hands gripping his shirt. She looked at peace with how calm her breathing was. "Kana seems to trust you a lot," Seely said as she sat next to Krage and petted Kana's head as she said teasingly, "Like this, you two look like father and daughter instead of husband and wife." Krage frowned. Although he knew this was true, he still did not like hearing it. Normally he would hit anyone who said such a thing, but since it was Seely, someone who was like Kana's sister, he could only grit his teeth and ignore her. Seeing Krage's disturbed face, Seely chuckled before saying, "I am just kidding. To be honest, you are perfect for her, and her next evolution should allow her to grow to a more adult-like size, allowing her to mature more. That is if dragons have the same kind of evolution traits as other beastkin. It doesn't matter if she is young or old. I will wait for her to grow up. All I care about is if she is enjoying her life. Her happiness is all that matters." Krage replied. His voice was low but carried a warmth to it. I was right. You are perfect for her. So I wish to ask you a favor." Seely stood up and bowed her head. "Please watch over Kana. I will be leaving after I have healed to train. As her elder sister, I cannot stay as I am. If I wish to protect those close to me, I must go on a journey to train. So please take care of her while I am gone. She will soon be entering the academy and learning new things. I was going to do the same, but as I am now, I can no longer stay by her side. I will only be a burden to her on her path." Krage stared at Seely for a while before nodding his head. "I give you my word. I will be closing my shop in Stonehammer for the time being. I will only return when Kana joins the academy. Just make sure you explain everything to Kana before leaving. Do not disappear on her. Her heart can't take such a thing." "I will. I would never leave without—" When Kana woke next, she was still snuggled up into Krage's arms. She blinked her eyes and looked up at his handsome face and smiled. "Handsome husband, you stayed with me? Are you feeling better?" Krage asked. "Yeah, I'm still sad about Lyserth, but I will work hard so I can bring her back." Kana felt like crying again, but pushed her tears back. She did not want to worry Krage anymore. "Kana, you're up?" Seely walked in with the help of one of the maids. "I will leave you two alone. I need to head back to the shop. I will be back tomorrow." Krage leaned over, kissed the top of Kana's head, and walked out of the room. "See you tomorrow, handsome husband." Kana yelled out as she sat up in the bed and leaned against the headrest. Seely sat down on the edge of the bed beside her and let out a sigh. But before she could say anything, Kana suddenly said, "So me and handsome husband slept together. So now we will have a baby." Seely almost choked on her laughter as she turned and looked at Kana, who was smiling away after her. Kana let out a laugh as she said, "I was just joking. How are your injuries?" "They're getting better. The doctor said they would be healed by the end of the week. He just left a little while ago. Kana the Academy will be accepting new enrollment in 3 months' time. I won't be going with you." Seely decided to just come right out and tell Kana her plan. "Once I am healed, I plan to go on a journey. I realized after this event that I am far from being strong enough to even stand next to you. I need to go out on my own and grow stronger one step at a time." Kana stared blankly at Seely. With her eyes reddening, Kana forced a smile. "I see. You must promise me one thing." Seely was also tearing up. She scooted up next to Kana and put her arm around her. "What do you want me to promise?" "I will promise you anything. 5 years. You must come back within 5 years' time." Kana said seriously, "I promise. I will return to this house in 5 years. So make sure you do not move on me during that time." Seely said as she leaned her head against Kana's head. "I will be here. It's a promise," Kana said, sticking her pinky out towards Seely. Seely smiled and wrapped her pinky around Kana's. The two shook and giggled. "Stone Hammer Kingdom, you're back. God damn, you took forever." Baldwin finally let out a sigh as he met Krage outside his shop. Krage frowned as he looked at Baldwin. He couldn't understand why he was outside the shop when the shop was clearly open. Baldwin knows to stay in the shop so that no one will steal anything. "Why are you out here?" "Krage, you don't know how crazy that damn wolf is. Right after you left, she showed up and kicked me out of the shop. I tried to fight her back and almost had the upper hand until she used some kind of debuffing spell on me. She said no one was allowed in until you came back. She basically barred all the customers from the shop, so I couldn't even take any orders." Baldwin did not realize that damn wolf girl was so strong. She literally lifted him up and tossed him outside. He, of course, would not speak of this to Krage because of his manly pride. This incident was too shameful for him. He was just lucky it happened, so earlier in the morning, no one should have seen it. "You old goat, why are you lying to Krage? I clearly saw you get picked up and tossed aside without you putting up any resistance." And then the crazy girl walked in and closed the door behind her. After that, you went to the pub. An old dwarven lady with a cane came walking up from next door. "You damn old bat. What do you know? You can't even wash your own ass by yourself. Never mind see more than a few meters in front of you." Baldwin yelled out. He was mad and embarrassed. His pride was shattering like a thin plane of glass. Krage ignored the two old people bickering and walked towards the door of his shop. He lifted his foot and thrust it out, kicking the door right off its hinges. He looked at the wolf girl who was startled by what had just happened and coldly said, "Get out." Felina heard his words and yelled out, "Why? Am I not beautiful enough? Why won't you just accept me and get rid of that wife of yours? I must be 1,000,000 times more beautiful than her." Krage's anger rose as he reached his hand out towards Felina's face. Felina thought he was going to cup her cheek with his hand, but quickly realized how wrong she was when she felt a strong, killing, intent weigh down on her as a big hand gripped her neck, cutting off her ability to breathe. Krage lifted the wolf girl into the air with one arm, while the wolf girl clawed at his hands and kicked with her feet as she tried to free herself from his grasp so she could breathe. Krage brought the wolf girl's face close to his as he threatened, "If I ever see you near me again, I will kill you." With these words, he flung the wolf girl out of the shop. She didn't even get a chance to gasp for breath before slamming face first into the wall across the street. The old woman, who was still arguing with Baldwin, saw the wolf girl embedded in. It was late the next day that Krage returned to Kana's house. At the same time, a messenger from the castle had shown up. "Miss Kana, His Majesty the King would like to see you." "Will Tilia be there?" Kana asked, ignoring the whole part about the king wanting to see her. "Ahem, she will be," the messenger replied with a smile. "Okay, let's go. Handsome husband, let's go see Tilia," Kana said before turning and looking at Seely, who was standing at the top of the stairs. She smiled and waved before yelling, "Seely, I will be heading to the castle to see Tilia." I will make sure to tell her to come and see you before you leave. Okay. Thanks, Kana. Seely smiled and waved goodbye to Kana. The messenger was confused as to why the tall, handsome man was coming. Miss Kana, His Majesty the King only called you. Huh? What does the king have to do with me visiting Tilia? Even if I was going to see the king, my handsome husband would still come along. Kana would not leave the house without Kraish. To her, Kraish had come from another kingdom to spend time with her. She thought it would be very rude to leave Kraish alone, so there was no way she was leaving him behind. The messenger looked at Kraish once more, and even though he was a man, he couldn't help but blush when looking at Kraish. He was just that handsome. But even though Kana was calling him handsome husband, he thought that maybe Kraish was her father. Although he did not have a dragon tail, it did not mean he could not be her father. That was until he saw the black ring on Kana's finger, and then he frowned. He looked at Kraish with eyes of disgust. That was until his vision suddenly went dark. Ow! sh*t, who dare strike His Majesty's messenger? Don't look at my handsome husband like that, Kana yelled. She had seen the man give Kraish a bad look, which made her mad. So she jabbed her fingers into the messenger's eyes. She then jumped up in the air, spun around, and said, "Tail slap." The messenger was suddenly sent flying across her lawn, slamming into a thick tree trunk that was many meters away. Humph! Kana snorted as she landed and crossed her arms across her chest. All right, let's go. It is not good to keep people waiting, Kraish said as he patted Kana on the head. He felt warmth in his heart, knowing his little wife got mad for him. Fine, let's go. Kana took Kraish's hand and pulled him onto the royal carriage. The driver was sweating from head to toe, wondering if he should leave the messenger or not. But when he heard Kana yell for him to go, he made the decision to leave the messenger and head to the castle. By the tree, many maids were looking at the messenger who was embedded into the tree. One even picked up a stick and began poking him. Is he dead? He seems to still be breathing. Why would he go and give dirty looks to handsome husband? I don't know, but the people at the castle should know that Miss Kana acts without thinking. Why he would try to offend her by giving dirty looks to the handsome husband is beyond me. Maybe he is that. Maybe the looks were not for the handsome husband, but for Miss Kana. Maybe he was jealous of Miss Kana for having handsome husband to herself. So he wanted handsome husband all for himself. So wouldn't that mean he is he looks like he would be the taker. Handsome husband can only ever be the giver. Although that does pique my interest to see something like that, but since he tried to steal handsome husband from Miss Kana, we should beat him some more. Miss Kana is such a sweet girl and a perfect match for handsome husband. You are very correct on this. Okay, ladies, let's beat him until his mother won't recognize him. How dare he try to steal handsome husband away from Our Lady? Yeah, beat him, kick him good. And so the poor messenger was now tossed in and out of the closet, and a new rumor would spread around the capital on how a messenger from the castle had tried to steal handsome husband from Miss Kana. Apparently, the maids did not know his name and only knew to refer to him as handsome husband due to Kana's influence. While one person was being beaten by maids, Kana and Kraish stepped out of the carriage at the entrance of the castle and were met by the guards. The guard who was in the lead bowed his head and greeted Kana. It is good to see you again, Miss Kana. It is my pleasure to guide you to the throne room. But the guard looked around for the messenger. He could have sworn the messenger was supposed to come back with Kana. Where is the messenger? He looked at my handsome husband funny, so I sent him flying. Kana snorted while putting her hands on her hips, showing how proud she was of her actions. The guard let out a laugh and nodded his head. He should feel privileged to be sent flying by Miss Kana. Let's head in His Majesty, and Princess Tilia are waiting for you. Okay, let's go. Kana quickly hurried the guard along. The head guard took the lead. Kana and Kraish followed after him while the other guards took the rear. Every person they passed, whether it was a guard, maid, or official, they all showed deep respect to Kana and bowed their heads to her. Kana had no idea why so many were bowing to her and smiling, but since they were being nice, Kana was not one to be mean and greeted them all back in the same manner. They quickly came up to a double set of doors, and the guard who was leading the way bowed his head and said, His Majesty and Princess Tilia are inside. You may enter. Kana held Kraish's hand and walked right into the throne room. Cray's expression was the same as ever, only changing when he looked at Kana. To him, Kana was a young chick still in her egg. When she evolved next, she would then hatch and become a blossoming beauty. Even if she was the ugliest girl in the world, Crage would still look at her fondly. This was now stemming from more than just his demon nature, but because he truly cared about Kana. When he saw her in such a horrible state with burns all over her body, his heart truly hurt for her. But now, seeing her so full of energy even after losing a precious friend, his heart felt at ease. He just wanted to stay by her side and spoil her as she grew up. When Kana walked into the throne room, the first thing she did was look around for Tilia. When her eyes finally fell on Tilia, who was wearing a sky blue dress with white lilacs embroidered into it, Kana's lips curled up into a bright smile as she yelled, "Tilia," and ran over to her. Of course, this did not go over well with the guards at the side. One of them drew his sword and yelled out, "Impudent! How dare you not greet the king?" He pointed his sword at Kana, who was running towards him, but before he could do anything, he saw a tall figure flash in front of him, reach out with their hand, grasp his head, and began to squeeze. A cold melodic voice fell onto all the ears in the throne room. "You dare draw your sword and point it at her?" Everyone was stunned at what just happened. Klain was going to tell the guard to step down, but he never expected that the tall man with Kana was so powerful that he seemed to have teleported to his guard and was already grasping his head, lifting his guard up off the floor. Klain's forehead began to sweat. "Sir, would you please let my guard go? I know he stepped out of line, and I promise you I will punish him. Kana is my most distinguished guest." Crage looked at Klain and nodded his head before releasing his grip on the guard's head. Kana, on the other hand, was already hugging Tilia. Tilia did not know whether to laugh or cry with how Kana completely ignored the king. But she did miss Kana herself and didn't hesitate to hug her back. "Kana, I do not know how to thank you for what you did for this kingdom." What did I do?" Kana asked. She did not think she did anything special. To her, it was Crage who cleaned things up and the goddess lady who came down. "You did a lot, young lady. It is because of your presence on the battlefield that so many powerful people showed up to assist us. Not to mention you alone killed many tens of thousands of soldiers by yourself. That in its own right is something to be praised for." Klain said as she reached out and patted Kana's head. "Oh, I just wanted to keep Tilia safe. I had heard she went to the front lines, so I decided to go out and help. So if you want to thank anyone, thank Tilia." Kana felt embarrassed getting all this attention all of a sudden. "No, Kana, you are a hero. You saved the lives of many of our own soldiers. Because you showed up, I was able to heal many soldiers who were standing at death's door. I could concentrate on my own work, knowing that the fighting would not reach the medical tents. This is the reason you were called here today. Father wants to award you for your heroic deeds," Tilia said with a smile on her face. Although many humans, people from her old home had died, she did not care. Her new home was now in the rural kingdom, where the minds of the people were untainted by the evils of the human race. "Oh, well, I'm glad I could help." Kana's cheeks turned red as she rubbed her hands together. She did not think she had done something so great, but she was happy that she had done something to help others. "You were of great help, so please come over here," Klain said, motioning for Kana to stand in front of his throne. Kana looked over at Tilia with questioning eyes and only moved when Tilia nodded her head. Crage stood to the side and watched as Kana went to stand in front of the king. He felt proud of the little girl. She ran off to battle, knowing that she may even get hurt, but still stood in the face of danger without wavering. "Miss Kana, I, King Klain Tigeria, now dub thee with the title of hero. From this day forth, you will be known as Rural Kingdom's one and only hero. You saved our lands from the massive invasion. And, as the hero of our lands, I would like to offer you a chance to become engaged to one of my sons. You can take your pick." Klain said proudly, completely forgetting the fact that Kana just walked in hand with a handsome man. Tilia, who was standing at his side, facepalmed and wondered what her father had been drinking today. Crage frowned as he glared at the king. He was about to say something when he heard Kana's voice echo throughout the hall. "No thanks. I already have a handsome husband, Kana said proudly with her hands on her hips, and her little nose turned up towards the sky. Klain froze and remembered Tilia did mention something like this. His eyes followed Kana as she ran over to Krage and held his hand, raising it above her head. See, handsome husband. Seeing Krage and Kana standing together, everyone began talking amongst themselves after hearing Kana's declaration. That wasn't her brother? I thought it was her father. Isn't he a little old? So he's a cradle robber? A complete and utter lowly. The last person to speak felt a cold air sweep over him, causing his words to be caught in his throat. It was not just him, but everyone in the room. They all turned their heads to see Kana's hair fluttering even though there was no wind. Kana was mad. She hated when people spoke badly of her handsome husband. Don't you dare say bad things about my handsome husband.